Hello, this is David D. Hilster. I am a critical thinker, dissident scientist, and I'm here to tell you the truth about science, something your university professors won't tell you, the mass media won't tell you, and certainly those science evangelists won't tell you. I want to thank everybody for continuing to comment and continuing to grow my subscribers. It's really great to see the discussions out there. I'm starting to see the same problem mainstream has, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. And that is mainstream science has no capability and no willingness to debate anything correctly. If they use the rules of debate, they're failing miserably. And the reason they fail miserably and they don't follow the rules of debate, because if they did, they'd be put in a corner. And what happens with critical thinkers is once we talk with these people and we look at a subject ourselves and we walk ourselves into a corner, we're going to say, there's a real problem here. Like engineer says, if there's a paradox, that is a problem. That's something that has to be solved. And all the public thinks that's the way it works, but it doesn't work that way in the science worlds, especially the theoretical science world. They don't do that. They even if they pretend that there's a mistake with relativity, a week later they come out and tell you why they were mistaken about their mistake. So let's look at how debate should work, and then we'll look after that how mainstream science avoids it, because again, if they were to do what we do as critical thinkers, they'd find out, oops, special relativity, throw it out, big bang, problematic. Any other better ideas? Of course we have better ideas, but let's talk about debate, where they go wrong. The first thing you want to do is you want to look at the specific terms, the claims, the specific claims of what somebody is saying. If somebody is saying special relativity has in its derivation a superfluous mathematically and physical frame, as the way Karazani is, you have to look at that fact in what that person is trying to say. They're saying there's a superfluous frame in special relativity. That's my claim. So you have to look at that. You have to look at what that is, look at the math behind it, and see what they're saying. The second thing you have to do is you got to look at this in context, because often, especially with Karazani, you'll hear things like, well, wait a minute, so the equation, there's a superfluous frame, you've removed that mathematically, you get this new equation that doesn't blow up at speed of light, but it says that as you go faster, mass decreases. Well, we know that doesn't make any sense. That mass increases because that's special relativity. That's what he's saying. What do you mean? Well, if you look into the context, what he's saying is that the only way for a mass by itself, with no other interaction from the other world, the only way for it to move itself is to expel mass from behind it, like a rocket. A rocket, to move itself, has to expel something from its own mass, and its mass gets smaller. It's simple, people, but if you look at it in the context of special relativity, you're going to get confused. So you can't judge another person's what a person's saying in their idea, in their criticism, in their equations, in their theory, in their model, if you do not look at how it works in its own context, not in yours. This happens a lot even in the dissident community. The critical thinkers, they oftentimes will jump on each other because they're looking at the world from their model, and then they criticize somebody who's got a whole different point of view on their model. So one of the things you learn in our critical thinking organization, the CNPS, is you learn to try to understand what someone is saying within their own context. And you don't even have to agree with it. You can even help somebody with their model that you don't agree with, but you can look at it critically within its own context. You also want to look and check for what the overall result of what the person's trying to say, the big picture. So you need to look at the big picture. If the big picture is saying that we got to throw relativity out, then understand that. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you have to understand that. And that's one of the big reasons, of course, people get really upset in the mainstream, because when you go and you look at the problems and the paradoxes and the things that we find who are critical thinkers, you will find that lots of this stuff is garbage. It must be thrown out. And that is not real popular, especially if you spend all your life writing about black holes and black holes. Yes, there are very dense objects in the world. There's one right in the middle of our galaxy. People are like saying, I deny science. Hello? I don't even like when people call things negative and positive, because and they charge us to come together. So don't talk about with me about what that I don't know. I believe in some new age stuff. No, I believe in physics, and physics doesn't even have physical models for most everything. But getting back to the subject, we have to check to make sure we understand the big picture and what those ramifications are. Those are the things we need to understand. Specifics of the claim. We need to understand the argument in its own context and its own world, and we have to look at the big picture, what this is going to mean. Is it just a small tweak, or is it a wholesale throwaway? Now, what do we do in what do people do in mainstream science? Well, one of the things you do in debate, also we do in the CMPS, and this has to be related to what people in the mainstream do, in fact, are starting to do in the discussions below these videos on my YouTube channel, is, oh, what's your title? Do you have a PhD? Watch my video on that. Well, titles don't matter. It's squat. Like I said, Einstein would have been thrown out on his keister because he was not an accepted PhD person in theoretical physics at the time. But somehow, that's different. Yeah, it's like two sets of rules. That's another thing. You have two sets of rules. You have two sets of rules. One for the mainstream science, which says things like, oh, everybody, it's been checked 1,000,000 times. So we don't have, if you try to go against it, then you're wrong. Of course, then if you have something and you say that it's not supported, or it's supported by lots of people, well, it doesn't matter. All the particle physics, all the particle accelerators don't really show any mass increase, which is true. But we don't care about that part. We don't look at it. But if it's something that you say that is true, of course, you get on your bandwagon and say, millions of times, millions of people, we teach it everywhere. So, you just basically have two sets of rules. You look at titles, you have two sets of rules, then you get the mass amount of people. Lots of people do it. That's a very common thing you'll hear. Well, we all know that. There's just, everybody's wrong. See, the funny thing is again, that statement, everybody's wrong, is an emotional one. It has nothing to do with logic, has nothing to do with debate. You're not going to go to the judge and say, well, judge, everybody's shooting everybody, so he can shoot someone. That's the argument people are giving. Well, everybody uses relativistic kinematic equations at the end game in particle accelerators, because then we have more energy that we have to account for, but we all use the neutrino, so it all works out. Well, Karazani says, we'll throw away the neutrino, you use regular kinematic equations, the autodynamic ones, and guess what? It all works out without it. Occam's razor, simplest wins. So, lots of people use it. And there's some other things too. Let me show you where you went wrong. This is another thing a person says, you got to study more. You don't understand it, little boy and little girl. That's another common statement. This has nothing to do. If you were in a debate class and you were to say things like we said just before, one of these, oh, lots of people are doing it. If you're even not debate, you're in court. And now you say, well, let me show you where you went wrong. You don't look at everything else. You look at one little thing over here and say, you said this, and this, and this, and this that support that. In fact, this person did commit the crime. I mean, it's overwhelming. But this one over here, you say you weren't not sure. And in fact, you said there was a bench there, and there's in fact no bench. It was over there. So therefore, if you got that wrong, you have to throw it all out. And that's what they do with dissident work, with critical thinkers who have new models, who have new equations, who have critiques of mainstream theory. They will do what I call that. I'm going to come along and I'm Luke Skywalker. I call it the Luke Skywalker save the day in shooting down. We're going to shoot down. So we've got this big Death Star. That's a Death Star of relativity. Relativity is dead. It doesn't work. And of course, Luke Skywalker says, and this is always funny in movies, there's just this one place, if you put one bullet, it all explodes. So therefore, it all disappears. That's your new theory, your new argument, your new model, we can throw out because of this one thing. And That's their argument. Of course, it's really funny because when we take the same thing to mass, for instance, special relativity, mass increase should be seen in particle accelerators. They're untaught by the experimentalists, but somehow we still use them. Well, that's okay. That's what you want to do. And of course, they also go around facts and they ignore facts. So let's look at the mass increase. So I hear some people underneath our videos discussing, well, yeah, there's no mass increase, but there's momentum. Momentum requires mass increase or and putting in more energy. They don't tell you how that happens. They just said, well, yeah, there's not mass increase. So they're going around, they're making excuses, whereas if that was a dissident idea, they would throw that out so fast. This is the problem. So when you hear, oh, you don't have a title, oh, lots of people have to have it, oh, let me show you where you went wrong, this one little paste, even though expansion tectonics is all great, oh, there's subduction, so expansion tectonics doesn't have subduction, so bam, we'll throw away the 99.9% of the evidence that points to for the one thing. Or we ignore the facts, we have double sets of rules, double standards, we go around the facts like we do in the particle accelerator. Well, you know, it's got momentum, we don't know what that is. And oh, by the way, momentum's related to mass, but don't say that. But somehow that gets by and we bypass the problem. This isn't debate. The mainstream doesn't debate. I'm dying to get on a stage with Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He'll never do it. I'll go on stage happily. Let him debate. We'll talk about how relativity's, I will say it's wrong. And he's going to just laugh at me like he does. Arrogance. Arrogance, title, entitlement. I'm in a gang. Gang members are always super powerful when they're all together. Why? Because 99% of the people in the university think this way, but the rest of us scientists, which is the majority, the number of theoretical physicists in this world is super duper tiny. The rest of us engineers, the rest of us scientists who believe in real science and real debate and real equations and not mumbo jumbo, we're the giant majority. It's just no one's giving us a voice. Here I am. And like I always say, folks, don't take what anybody says on faith. Stay critical, stay thinking. I'm Dave D. Hilster. I am your science therapist. Ciao for now.